Welcome to the PrimeSpan Podcast, where we talk about aging, mental health, and living well in the years that matters the most. Each week, we cut through the noise to focus on what actually helps you feel clearer, steadier, and more in control as you age. If you're navigating the second half of life or thinking ahead, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to PrimeSpan Podcast, where we believe that after 55, health is not just about living longer. Today, we're joined by one of our PrimeSpan coaches, Teri Jacobson. Teri is a conscious living educator, aging adult, and end-of-life doula, a dementia care specialist, advanced care planner, and someone who has spent years helping individuals and families navigate one of life's most important transitions. What I appreciate most about Teri's work is that she reminds us that wellness is about much more than physical health. It involves how we care about our bodies, our emotions, our mind, our spirit, and the practical realities of life. So today, we're exploring what it truly means to live intentionally and how we can create well-being at every stage of life. Teri, welcome to PrimeSpan Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
We're excited to talk with you here. And of course, we have Ray in our podcast always here accompanying me as a co-host. I think it's good for our listeners just to start a little bit to get to know you. It's always for us, one of our goal in this conversation is so whoever's listening get to know who you are. How did you get to where you are now? What was your journey prior to what you're doing to today? Do you mind sharing a little bit about you and how did you end up getting into the field that you're in now?
Yeah, sure. No, I would love to. I love to talk about it. So thank you. I wasn't always a doula. So for those of you that don't understand what a doula means, if you've heard of a birthing doula, in the Greek, it's actually a woman's servant. And in the birthing doula world, midwife world, it's somebody who comes along the family, the person that's having the baby, and prepares them and then supports them through the labor and then helps them transition into this new world of having children. So what I do is at the other end of the life, and I help people age well, creating priorities and intentions to make sure that they are living according to their morals and values and all of that. So I help them prepare. I help them transition during their dying process, and then I support the loved ones and families afterwards. So that's kind of what a doula does. I wasn't always a doula. I came from global mobility. I helped people move all over the world and was their counselor for integration and acclimation. But it really led me to be able to sit with people and meet them where they are and understand what they may need and actually kind of peel back some layers to see what is their why, what is their reasoning for certain decisions that they're making. So in that global mobility aspect, I learned a lot about just listening and taking care of what I'm hearing, not putting judgment on it. And that really translated into my end of life work because we come with no agenda, right? We're not here to fix, change, do any of that. We're here to support their journey. So death has always kind of been around in my life, with grandparents and friends and things like that. And I had one friend in particular that she was a young mom, and this is before I was a doula, and she wanted help in leaving messages for her 2-year-old son. And so we spent weeks on doing video messages for him for the rest of his life. And it made such a profound impact on not only her in the way that she was mourning and grieving, not being able to be there for her son, but it impacted her son's life for years to come. So then I had a very dear friend die of cancer that I was a caretaker, and it just was obvious to me this was where I was supposed to go. So I started volunteering for hospice, and it even became more clear. So then I went and was trained for end-of-life doula.
When you're talking about how did you get into where you are now, and throughout your transitions, it really shows a lot of passion about the work. How did you become so passionate about this industry, this service that you're providing people? Because I think it's probably important for people to see where that's coming from. And I'm curious, what's the inner drive that's driving you to do that?
That's a good question, Adam. I think the biggest piece is walking with people even before I was a doula and noticing the lack of body, mind, spirit care. Hospice is awesome. I love hospice, but they're limited on their time. And most people, no matter if they're in disease or wellness, we like human connection. We like heart connection. And seeing that at the most sacred, sensitive, intimate time of our life, we've dropped that. We've medicalized disease, dying, and death. And watching families lean in and do this work, it makes a difference in everybody's life. And so if I see an opportunity to support somebody, body, mind, spirit, so that they can freely release, so that they can, I call it rugs, regrets, unfinished business, guilt, and shame, that they can work on their body, mind, spirit alignment to have this peacefulness. And once you see it, and once you actually witness somebody doing this work, it becomes sacred, and you want everyone to have that. I want to have it. And if I can get other people to do the work, help with the work, and families to lean in, it just makes grieving. Death is going to be here. We can't get away from that. And the more we talk about it, the more we plan for it, the better our death will be. And the easier the grief in the morning will be to hold.
As you're describing this, what comes to mind is living very conscious living, being intentional at everything that you're doing, especially at a certain life stage. But I'm curious, you've been doing this work, Teri. Can you share an experience that changed how you viewed aging and wellness in particular throughout your practice, throughout the time that you've been in this work?
Oh, yeah, I can share a few. And it's different for each person, right? Especially with regret. So taking care of yourself and living intentionally, I call it conscious living and conscious dying. What you do today will impact you maybe years down the road, but it will impact you. I've witnessed many people who have not taken care of their body, who did not live intentionally, and they are burdened with this. It's like a heavy blanket that they can't take off. So helping people live intentionally and consciously, I do what's called the best 3 months, where we go through the 5 domains of life and say, what is important, and then put a map together for them to achieve those visions. When you can help people get on a path and give them the tools to stay on the path and catch them when they fall off the path, encourage them back on, then it just makes such a big difference. I had someone who, this is body, mind, spirit, right? So they were not speaking to a family member, hadn't for a long time, and it was still a burden on their heart, which presents physically, right? When we grieve, it presents physically. So working through that with this person, allowing him to forgive himself, to forgive the other person, it released the physical part of that painful relationship. And then you can move into reconciliation if that's appropriate. So it just blossoms. So living intentionally removes that risk of having to build back something that was broken. Physically, I'm working with somebody right now that has been active, on and off active, but would fall off her track and then not do exercises, not use her feet. Feet are so important. Toes are important. And now she's having a hard time walking. And so witnessing how life ends up for people that are not being intentional about their body, mind, spirit, physical, emotional, all of that, makes me live more intentionally, right? And I try to go upstream to help people understand that what you do today matters. And I can support a healthy lifestyle, an intentional lifestyle. I've also been with people who have taken really good care of themselves and have done intentional work, and their dying looks much different.
I've been in the senior care industry for quite some time, and I really appreciate what you're doing. And we have some kindred work about connection, about what our views about this. But I'm curious about your opinion about why do so many people typically drift through life rather than intentionally designing it?
I think it can be different things for different people, right? Moms get busy with being a mom. So they don't think they have the time to work out at the gym for an hour, or they're exhausted at night, so they don't journal, they don't meal prep, they don't do all of these things that support wellness and intentional life because they're busy. People get distracted and get on a path, and it's really hard to say to yourself, I need to live intentionally, and this is how I can do it, because everybody goes, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it all the way. Well, when you're doing intentional work, it really isn't about doing it all in. It's about steps. It's about, okay, I'm just going to meal prep tonight for tomorrow morning. You don't have to meal prep for the whole week. If we're struggling for finding time to work out, then I'm just going to walk around the block when my child is on the bike. So you fit these things in as opposed to letting time just dictate what it wants you to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfectly.
There's a part of me that believes we all want to appear to have everything together. And when we can step back and say, life is life and life is tough sometimes, and I don't have it all together, that then opens up a door that you don't have to be perfect at everything. And instead of, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to get fit. Well, in our head, we're thinking we're going to have, big arms and all of that. But when you allow yourself just to say, this feels good, just walking around the block felt good. And that is a win. You don't have to wait 7 months to have a great arm for it to be a win. Your win is your intentional walk around that block. Yeah.
I think you really shed a light on how you put that together. I actually have the same view about this. Before I get more into questions, I'm sure Ray is thinking of asking some of the questions here already. Ray.
Thanks, Terry, for sharing your thoughts. That was a loaded question that Adam asked, and I think you navigated it beautifully. I think your point of in life, we're kind of conditioned to think we have to go all the way. I think we're all taught that in some way. But I think a lot of our conversations around PrimeSpan and also the work that you're doing is that we can give ourselves the permission that it can be small. And so I think the more that we continue to talk about this, people will understand, okay, I don't have to do so much. And that moms can still be a mom, but also do something for themselves. Or so can the dads. For you kind of talked about the roadmap, and you're kind of extending your roadmap from more towards end of life and kind of having that roadmap come a little bit sooner in life. And I really think that's really special that you're on our team and wanting to help people and share your knowledge and experience with people sooner, because that's our goal, is to help people realize that it's not too late to start doing these things and being intentional. People just get too busy and say, I don't have time. But I think your conversation around being intentional is just so important. And I hope people learn from your conversation here.
Ray, I think you're right on when you say people think that they do have to go all the way. Even when we look at changing our habits, if you tell somebody, even if they have a glass of wine once a week, this is no judgment, this is an example, but even if they have a glass of wine once a week and they're like, I want to stop drinking wine, But then they go all the way forward to the holidays and say, oh, so let's just skip this weekend. It's the intentional and consistent things that we do that then build into a lifestyle and a better serving habit, for lack of a better term. I always told my daughter growing up that there's good, better, and best. So what is good, what is better, and what is best? Those are your three options. And I think if we utilize that thinking when we go out to improve our life in body, mind, spirit, whatever that looks like, if we say good, better, best, it's still a victory when we're talking about it, right? I mean, that is where it begins, is the conversation. Better is when you talk about it and put action to it, and best is when we're consistent and intentional, so good, better, best.
I love that concept because most of the household is binary, good or bad.
There is really no bad. There's just an opportunity, right?
Correct. I believe that too. It's true. Teri, you've talked about the 5 domains of wellness, and which is really aligns to everything that we're doing at PrimeSpan, but you've been doing that for the longest time. I'd like us to go a little bit on that area, and I'm curious to ask you your opinion on the wellness. I want to ask you first on the physical wellness domain. What are the biggest misconceptions people have about physical aging, in your opinion?
That it's inevitably painful, that you lose control.
Mm.
You lose your independence. And in reality, you gain so much more independence because you know your body so much better. And I mean, I sat with a 92-year-old at a baby shower a couple of weeks ago, and her husband passed 4 years ago. And she thought, I thought I was going to be at home, sad. And she said, a new life exploded. And so she's out there playing tennis and all these things. So
that's amazing.
It's pickleball, I should say, pickleball. So it doesn't have to look like something that we dread. I mean, we should learn how to honor our physical body. It has done a lot for us and continues to do a lot for us. And thanking our physical body for the breath, for the movement, for anything, all of it. I think that is what might be missing in a lot of people's world, is looking at the negative, saying, my back hurts, I can't walk as far, but thanking your body and then honoring it to strengthen it.
And when you think about a physical habit that creates the biggest long-term return on investment, what would that be for you?
Movement. I mean, I believe our feet and our core are essential pieces that we need to pay attention to, because if our feet are not able to be flexible, then we can't move as quickly, then we fall. If our toes are not being able to move like this, then our balance is off. And walking will help that, making sure our core is tight. So I just think movement, but anything that helps flex the feet, strengthen the feet and the ankles and your core. And that can just be sitting on a chair and doing toe lifts, right? Lifting your heels and lowering your heels and rolling your feet and things like that. It's not hard, but it has to be intentional.
Ray and I just did a podcast this week, and she's a fitness professional. She's been in the industry for 30 plus years, and she has exactly similar advice like what you just gave us. I want to talk about emotional wellness.
Okay.
Emotional wellness. What do you think? How do people maintain resilience during transitions such as retirement, caregiving, loss, or changing of health?
It's like a threshold, and being curious about what's to come, but really honoring. So there's grief in every transition, no matter if it's retirement, job change, house moves. Honoring that grief and still having the gratitude for what you did have and curiosity for what's to come is important. I work with all different types of faith beliefs. One gentleman, actually, he was an atheist. And so I was curious of how he was going to support his own emotional, spiritual walk. And he found peace in just what he had created in life, as well as what was right in front of him. So even as simple as a freshly toasted bagel, he found the gratitude in that. And that became his resilience piece. I'm curious about what I'm going to find gratitude in next week or next hour or next minute. People that I find that don't necessarily think that they're resilient are very resilient. It's hard. It's hard. But knowing that it's hard and saying it's hard and this is unfair and this is not what I had planned, that alone opens the door up for newness. And hope can be big. It can be hope for a cure, hope for the big stuff, but it also can be hope for that my pain doesn't keep me awake tonight. It can be small and it can be big. And we find resilience and perseverance in our hope.
And that is, beautifully said, Terry. And I like what that example is, because that person really, and most of the time, if we just amplify that sense of gratitude, you'll find that you'll be more grateful. You just practice it even more. And sometimes it's us paying attention to that act. The more you do it, the more you feel better about it.
Yeah. And it's not dismissing the hard, right? Mm-hmm. It is still acknowledging the hard and the sad and the grief and all of it. But it is also just being thankful, actually kind of welcoming it as a part of life, as opposed to trying to resist it. Gratitude is huge.
What emotional skill do you believe every adult should actively develop, especially as they start aging, when they start closing to retirement and so on?
I think regulation is super important. Learning how to regulate, recognizing when you are not regulating. So the emotional part is kind of living a reconciled life, and living a reconciled life, not only with other people, but with ourselves. Forgiveness. Emotions cover many different triggers, right? Anger is not necessarily anger. It can be triggered from fear, from abandonment, from betrayal. So I give my clients an emotional wheel that talks about the emotions, and then it breaks it down all the way out, like 4 wheels out, so we can pinpoint what that emotion is. Where is it coming from? What wound are we dealing with here? And then we can better heal that piece. Instead of just saying, I'm angry, we go backwards and find that wound and then help to heal that wound. Then they no longer have to respond at a trigger. They're regulating that emotion through the healing. So being curious about your emotion, being curious of why all of a sudden you feel it in your body. What is that? So I think what I encourage people to do is be curious. If you feel something in your body, ask what it's telling you. It's your wisdom whisperer. Ask what it's sharing with you. What is it asking you to do? And then move forward, and not be so quick to judge yourself or judge others, and practice the pause and ask the question.
Your answer actually took me to the proper segueing to the next area that I wanted to mention, which is the mental wellness. And I was going to ask you, what role does curiosity play in healthy aging?
Huge. Really, it is. We're learning every day. And I tell my clients that we live until our last breath. We are alive until our last breath. And what do we have to experience in each of those breaths before? each of those minutes, hours, and how can we go from being in our head, our ego, and functioning from our heart space as opposed to our head space? Because it's not going to change anything getting in our head and beating ourselves up for whatever we want to beat ourselves up or other people. But if we can sit in our heart space and say, I'm alive, I may be hurting, I may be not in a great place, but I am here, and what do I have to be grateful for? It's when we get in our head that can really trigger a spiral down, because it can create some really hard conversations in our head. But if you hold that child, your own person that you're mad at for doing or saying or acting a certain way, if you can hold that person gently and say they did the best that they could at that time, and then move on to something that is helpful as opposed to just spinning in your head. A lot of people spin in there. I mean, it's easy to do.
It's probably one of the easiest trap for many people.
Yeah. Did you have something, Ray?
Yeah, I have a question. It sounds like you have worked with a lot of people and helped them work through their curiosities and their emotion and processing. For someone who wants to try, what are some tips that you have to help them process their curiosity or their thoughts without someone to help them? It sounds like the people that you're working with have you to support them, but what about someone who is realizing, oh, I really should take care of my emotional, mental wellness?
I would probably begin with the emotion wheel. There's also a wheel out there that I can't remember the name of it, but you rate through all of your domains, you rate on a scale of 0 to 10 where you think you are. And then if you take that emotional wheel and start noticing, start being curious, being mindful, being in the moment, as opposed to rushing, even when you're driving the car and somebody cuts you off and you feel that emotion in you, feel that emotion and then ask what it's about. And that's where that wheel really can help, because if you're triggered and you don't know why you're triggered, then you get into your head and you let the trigger keep on going. Where if you pull out your sheet and you say, okay, I'm feeling sad, what's beneath the sadness? And just kind of do that. You could do it as a journal type of thing at night. What did I experience today? What emotion did I experience today? When did I get in my head? And just really, it's about self-reflection. I mean, it is all about self-reflection in the end. That's how we become conscious life and conscious dying. Yeah, but I think I would give people the wheel and just say, be curious about what you're feeling, explore.
Teri, I want to talk a little bit about spiritual wellness. And I'm curious, what's your opinion about what this spiritual wellness means?
It means being able to find a place of peace in chaos. Mm-hmm. Whatever that looks like to somebody. It could be sitting on a beach. It could be meditating. It could be going to a synagogue or a church, it is whatever works for that person, where they can find a place of peace in the chaos of life and the grief of life. That's what it means to me.
From just a reference here, how can people reconnect with meaning during major life transitions?
Again, it's self-reflection, right? Because every closed door, there's another door or window that is opening. And even in death, right? Even as we're dying, we're experiencing something new through the transition. Being self-reflective and knowing that everything has meaning and that your life had meaning, and creating, it's a hard question, but creating, like, that's kind of why I do legacy work. That's why I love to do legacy work. And it's not about, I want my name on a billboard or I want to always be remembered. Most of the legacy work I do is about leaving nuggets of wisdom for people that will come across it. Either, I mean, I've painted rocks with people that say believe, because that person wanted people to believe in themselves. We've done quotes for grandkids. So it's about, I think it's a Buddhist story where the little boy comes across an old man planting a fruit tree. And the little boy says, "Old man, you'll never see the fruit." And he said, "That's why I'm planting it." Right. So having purpose and meaning is not about right now in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
If that works.
And I recall that there's also a version of that proverb where it's very similar, where older people start planting so then the next generations can benefit from the trees that they planted. I want to ask you, we talked a little bit about gratitude earlier, but what role does gratitude play in aging well, in your opinion?
It's probably the number one benefit you can give yourself is be grateful. I mean, it goes from the rain outside. I mean, gratitude is when you can look at the world as if you've never seen it before and be grateful that you're actually seeing that flower or you're seeing the snow fly. It makes all the difference in not only the person who is expressing gratitude, but everybody around them. Energy is felt when somebody's crabby. That is felt as soon as they walk in a room and nobody wants to be around them. But if someone is grateful and filled with joy just to be here right now, everyone wants to be around that person. So that has meaning in it and that has purpose in it. And that brings such a spirit of contentment as opposed to sitting in the negative where we're grumbling. I mean, you can see why people are left alone sometimes, right? Because they're grumbling. And sometimes grumbling is important. If somebody is grumbling, ask them, why? What's bothering them? Because it does matter. But if you can turn that into a gratitude grumble, that person just stole my brownie or whatever, and just say, "Oh, I'll get another brownie tomorrow." I think gratitude and curiosity.
Speaking of gratitude, I can't help to be thankful for having conversation with you, just because it's very enlightening, Teri. It reminded me of how our first conversation was actually. When we first connected, I felt really connected with you because of your mission, who you are, and you really are just a generous person about what you're doing in life and everything that you practice. We're grateful for that. I want to segue us to something that I'm curious that you've seen. You're in the same industry that I'm in. We care for people. And I'm curious, I'm sure you've observed this, but when you look at people that age exceptionally well, what do you think or what have you seen they have in common?
Generosity. Yeah, generosity and just a thirst for life, no matter what that looks like, in the hard and in the easy, just a thirst for connection, for life. I mean, people that I see age really well have a tendency to welcome anything, everybody, and sit in the awe and wonder of the moment, be it a band at a senior living community or a parade or a simple rainstorm. No, it's just generous in spirit for anything that is coming and everything that we have. Most people who are aging well are not alone. They have been kind, generous, grace-filled, grateful people.
it almost goes back again to just gratitude and curiosity, similar to your answer earlier. As I'm looking at your observation.
And I just want to caveat one thing. For someone who has not aged well or feels like they're not aging well, and they feel burdened by frustration or anger or resentment or any of those things, those emotions and those pieces of our life are recognized and they're acknowledged. And it's when we sit in those and cling to those that we have a tendency to get ourselves stuck. But when we're willing to acknowledge and move them out of our body, move them out of our heart, out of our mind, then we have an opportunity to age beautifully.
Ray, do you have any thoughts about one? Because I have one specific segment I want to ask Teri about near and dear, and I'm sure this is part of her expertise, but I want to make sure I check with you first before I take her there.
Well, I'm just reflecting on, there's so many nuggets of advice and enlightenment that I feel from listening to Teri and Teri sharing her experience. I really think that people can listen to this episode and sit and reflect on everything that you're sharing. But for aging, I like that you shared that if people feel like they're not, that there's a way that they can. I agree, and I have a lot to take from listening.
Oh, thanks, Ray.
Teri, an extensive experience in supporting individuals and families affected by dementia. And so I want us to take a little moment here. I'm curious, from your opinion, what has that work taught you about life itself?
Oh man, it has taught me so much that everyone needs to be patient and everybody deserves respect and dignity. And no matter, there's always a way to communicate better. That, especially in dementia, I have found, and I think there's actually studies on this, that people feel your energy before they hear your words. And being willing to check yourself as opposed to relying on the person that's experiencing cognitive impairment or a form of dementia to change, to meet you where you are. We are meeting that person where they are. And to have that willingness to say, what don't I know? You know, it goes back to good, better, best, right? How can I train myself up to know that I shouldn't directly approach somebody straight on, you know, that I should stand to this side, that I don't pull, I guide, you know, all of these things. And I think the bottom line is everyone that I have worked with that has a form of dementia has taught me that our identity is not everything. I say that I'm Teri Jacobson. I say that I'm a doula. No, and I do those things, but that is a title, a label. And these people that are even deep in their disease, they bring so much joy to life because they're just living. They're not trying to be anybody but who they are right there in that moment. It's just a lesson for how we should live life. I'm not saying that it doesn't get hard. I'm not saying that there's not challenges, but man, if we can just be in the moment and not have something to prove or just be in awe, you know, of stories.
I couldn't agree more. And especially when in our country where most of our identity is tied into our careers. And sometimes we limit ourselves into that identity. And the reality is there's more into a person because life is more than that.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about the lessons, but I want to ask you, when families, because a lot of the time it's families who struggles more than the person who's experiencing dementia, how can families stay connected after their loved ones gets a diagnosis?
Well, it's a long journey, right? I mean, first I want to encourage anybody who has received a diagnosis or their loved one has, is that it is a long journey and there's lots of beautiful moments still to be made. And depending on where they are, you know, on the journey determines how you interact and how you engage and how you connect. Early stages, a lot of times when someone gets diagnosed, all the red flags for everybody go up. And I think that's part of the reason why people don't want to go through a formal diagnosis, because they're like, my car is going to be taken away. And it's a long journey. But as someone gets farther into the disease stages, for me, it is energy. It is holding somebody's hand. It is listening to a story they've said 20 times and asking them questions about it. It is never asking them, why don't you remember that? And just really finding that person that you love in the stories that they're telling, and not take it personally when they don't know your name or they don't understand your role in their life. They may not know that you're the daughter. They may think you're the sister. And that's the one thing they do know, is that they love you and that there's a special relationship there. Towards end of life, I do this with almost everybody, because at end of life, most often you're not very responsive. You're not completely unconscious, but you're not conscious either. But hand holding is huge. Touch is huge. If you want to stay connected to someone with dementia, just touching them, putting your hand on their shoulder, putting your hand on their arm. Towards end of life, putting your hand on your heart and putting the other hand on their heart, and visualizing that connection. It's magical. And just being soft with people. Yeah.
I really appreciate that insight, Terry, because a lot of the time these are the struggles, and some of our listeners are the family members of the aging parents. I think that it should be an open conversation even more, because people can connect and get more insights of how to navigate around it, because there's still a taboo around this conversation, and there's a lot, of course, shame and grief that comes around it. But conversation should, with a lot of care, of course, but we should always widen the topic,
Well, people want to talk about it, especially people that are living inside of it. And to have a safe space to talk, to have a safe space to say, that really hurt my feelings when I went in and they didn't even know who I was. Those are valid points. Those are valid emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And having a place that can help somebody reframe that into the next time you go see them, what are ways that you can show up for them. But you're right, Adam. I think opening the conversation is important, and as is opening the conversation about dying and death, right? They want to talk about it, but they do want to talk about it.
Correct. And this coming to terms, as I've been practicing talking about this topic, we have to practice coming to terms in life and acceptance. Terry, a new part of the podcast last time with our guests, and I want to try this with you too. This is a rapid fire round, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ask you rapid fire question. You can answer it with one liner, one word, but I'm gonna just give you questions, one liners. I'm curious about your answers about this. First question, fill in the blank. Aging is blank.
Beautiful.
Next question, one wellness habit everyone over 55 should start tomorrow.
Hydrating.
Second, another question, most underrated aspect of healthy aging.
Opportunity. Tons of opportunity. Yeah.
Another one, most important family conversation.
There's so many. Autonomy, agency, dignity, and end of life.
Beautifully said. Next question, one thing people should stop postponing.
Their wellness.
Well said. A couple more. I have 4 more. One thing people should start doing immediately.
Walking, moving. Yeah. I'll say moving.
Moving.
Yeah.
Another one. Biggest misconception about aging.
That it's no fun.
2 more. What's something people think matters that ultimately doesn't?
What kind of car they drive.
It's very fitting in here in Los Angeles.
It's not going to matter, people, really.
That's true. Love that answer. Last question in the rapid fire segment. What brings the most meaning to life? Yeah. Thank you. Babies, yes. Ray, I'm sure you have more questions. I can't believe it. We're almost an hour on our conversation here. Time flies.
I love the rapid fire questions that we're doing now. It's fun. It's fun. Just kind of like the first thing that comes to mind. I was thinking about before we started recording the podcast, Teri shared her perspective about, if you're willing to share, Teri, a new chapter of life that you're coming into with a new little blessing in your life. And I think the perspective you shared earlier needs to be shared, or we need to discuss it more if you're willing to talk about it.
Thank you. Bringing that back into full circle.
My question is, how has your perspective on living well and living life now that you have a new blessing in your life?
Yeah, it definitely, I think what I said to you was my why certainly got bigger. Why do I want to age well? Why do I want to be intentional with my body, mind, spirit, my food, my exercise, all of that? My daughter just had her first baby, my first grandbaby, little girl. And it was interesting the day that she was born, because as an end-of-life doula, I'm really close and see end of life all the time. But the morning that she was born, knowing that I have clients that are taking their last breath while she's taking her first breath was really fascinating to me. It really amplified the sacredness of life and the importance of living intentionally, not only in our body, mind, spirit, but in our thoughts, in our hopes, in our goals, in our why. And so this little baby girl she blew up my why. I mean, she just blew up my why, because I want to watch her grow. I want her to watch me take care of myself. So my daughter takes care of herself. She has a role model, an example. Having my grandbaby watch me get on a bike when I'm 80 years old, if I can. But that's a huge why. It's a beautiful, beautiful why. I'm so thankful. Thanks, Ray.
Thank you for sharing that. Came to my mind one of the reasons why we had one of these campaigns a little bit earlier called Be Here for My Future. And this was inspired by the other interns, along with myself, that we have in the community, that we want our parents and grandparents to be around for us as long as we can. And you're really sharing this from the start of your granddaughter's first breath. So it's really special.
Ray, can you share to our audience what are the other things that we're doing and how can they find us, and even more? And then perhaps you could segue off to Teri as well. How can they find Teri?
Yeah, so if you're following us listening to this current podcast, you're probably listening on Apple or Spotify or Substack or on YouTube. So thank you for listening in on our podcast. And please be sure to listen in on other episodes that have great stories behind them and then a lot to learn from different things. But we also want people to check us out on our website at community.primespan.life. There you can see more of our story, our why of PrimeSpan, and see what are the services that we are offering. Our service is for our crew membership to get some educational pieces and more support about how Teri shared about how she's living her lifestyle and wellness. And so we want you to take that journey with us. And if you want to take the next step and get a little bit more support, we welcome you to have Teri as your PrimeSpan Build Coach. We have this coaching available for our members at a reasonable rate, cheaper than a therapy session, cheaper than a doctor's office session. And we want people to have this consistent support, and that could definitely be with Coach Teri. And lastly, before I hop it over to Teri, follow along on our social media, because there we're sharing more pieces of info that hopefully can resonate with you. If you really liked what Teri shared, please check out a coaching session, book a coaching session with her. If the membership price is a little steep for you to get started, we do have a one-time option if that's something you're interested in to try once, to be more intentional. So, Teri, how can our listeners be more intentional with you?
Oh, well, thank you for that, Ray. I really encourage anybody who is interested to do the coaching through PrimeSpan. It is fabulous coaching, and just the whole concept of PrimeSpan really speaks to living life intentionally, consciously. As far as my personal, you can reach me at terijacobson.com. That's my website. It has all my contact information there. But I want to encourage anybody who is looking for support for an end-of-life situation to find a doula close to you that can support you completely it's a sacred time and you don't have to do it alone. And there are doulas out there. So if you want to reach out for that specifically, I can help you find one, but please vet them and make sure that they are appropriate and a good fit for you. Or you can find me at PrimeSpan. Thank you for having me.
Teri, it's been an honor. It is an honor to have you as a guest today. It's an honor to have you as part of the team. It's an honor to know you as a person. You're one of a kind. You're such a gentle soul. We're just thankful for the friendship that we have with you, and we look forward to having more conversation with you and different topics. This is a primer to get people to get to know you, get to understand who you are as a coach, who you are as a professional. And really, for our listeners, I hope that you enjoyed this conversation and really reflect on life and what's really important at the end of the day. We appreciate you, Ray, for being here. Teri, thank you so much for being here today. And to our listeners, thank you for listening. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for spending time with us. If today's conversation gave you clarity or steadiness, take that with you. We release new episodes weekly. Follow the PrimeSpan Podcast on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep living well.